Internet! I hope you guys are having an awesome day. It is getting a bit toasty out here in Los Angeles, so pardon any glistening glowiness I might have. Most of the glow is going to come from comic books, but any glow that doesn't come from comic books is going to come from 90-degree late April Los Angeles. So last week we did 0 through 100 of my West Coast comic collection. I do believe my West Coast collection starts with issue 23. So we went through the annuals, then we got to issue 23, and then we dove through 100. Now, I had a lot of fun last week because I didn't expect as much nostalgia to come from the storylines. I thought we'd talk about the covers. I thought it'd be like a 45-minute stream. It was almost an hour and 20. And I also thought we'd get through half the long box, and we got through like a quarter. So all of that is excellent news, because that means, well, frankly, it's going right if it takes longer and it's more engrossing than you expected. I was very happy. You guys were all so entertained. It's actually like, we got a lot of comments, we got a lot of movement, we got a lot of good stuff out of it. So I was really excited. I think I'm going to try to do this every Thursday, or as many Thursdays as I can. I want to make this a weekly show. I want to make this a consistent thing. So I'm really excited you guys are all in. After long box number 1 here, after we get through Amazing Spider-Man, I think I'm going to mix it up and head over to Blu Rays, then come back for Deadpool stuff. What up, Max? As we know, if you watched the first episode, Max Schartz sent me an Amazing Spider-Man number 26, which I needed to add to my sweet, precious long box, which is what kicked off the idea of doing this in the first place. So I'm glad Max is here. I am very excited once again to dive in. I'm just going to pull up the Streamlab madness here, and then we'll get crack-lacking. Once again, hope you're all staying warm. Well, not warm, but sane and comfy cozy. Let's do it, y'all. I'm excited. All right, so Amazing Spider-Man is the flagship Spider-Man book. It is the book that started in 1963. It is the book that pretty much kicked off the way we see Spider-Man, and it was a title that no one expected. Amazing Fantasy number 15 was the last issue of the Amazing Fantasy run. So Stan Lee and Steve Ditko kind of snuck Spider-Man in there because no one at the Marvel Comics at the time thought you could have an insect-based character go as well as it did. Obviously Ant-Man and tons of other characters since, but they kind of just put him in there and were like, we'll see what happens. So they didn't know until months later, once you got the feedback from Amazing Fantasy 15, they had a giant hit in their hands, and Spider-Man, more Amazing Spider-Man. All right. Let's go with... Oh, before I dive into this, shameless plug, check this out. I got merch. I am now wielding the very first of my own Coy-Cast shirts, and there's mugs. I'm so excited. There's coffee. Okay, I was stumbling over words. Now I can talk, and now I can dive in. Okay, let's get to it. First issue after 100 that I have. Let's find... issue, let's see, there's the beauty, there's 100. All right, we got Amazing Spider-Man number 103. We got another Kazar issue. This is what kind of became covers for a long time. You've got a lot of color, a lot of pop, a lot of mobility. Also, you'll notice how much framing they used. You see how much around the actual cover art there is of just this space, and it gives this almost movie poster quality to me, where it tells a story, but it's also the actual art itself feels like art. Like, this feels like a piece of art you could frame. And you'll also find a lot of this art on vinyls. Marvel's reprinted a lot of this era onto comic covers, and it's in that sweet spot of the Silver Age almost ending. Like, the Silver Age is coming to a close, and the art style really shifted in these covers. All right, next up, we've got 104. I love this cover because basically this gives us both Kazar and Kraven. This gives us, obviously, Kraven and Kazar are going to have to encounter each other. This is bound to happen with both of these types of characters, so I really dig this cover. And once again, look how much black there is in this frame. There's actually framing around this here, and then Spider-Man pops out of it at the top, so it kind of breaks out of the barrier that it gave itself to begin with. Spidey is joining us here. And then we also have, next up, an Amazing 106. Now, when I say top covers, I'm going to have to expand that to like top 50, just the Amazing Spider-Man, because this one definitely makes the cut as well. You've got to know what's going on here. You've got Spider-Man unmasked. You've got a ton of questions. He's acknowledging that he's been unmasked. You've got a little splash of pink here. The framing around it's this deep purple, and the whole thing just reads like, what's going on? So another fantastic cover from the Silver Age. That was in the Spider-Man is being persecuted and hunted down era of Spider-Man. That was definitely going on quite a bit back in the day. All right, and then we've got... Oh, yes. Okay. So this is John Romita Sr. doing what he does best, which is giving us lots and lots of different characters. Just in the characters below, you see the scum and villainy of New York. You see all of this violence going on, and then Spidey cops out. I love the speech bubbles here. I love how large he looms over the city. This is Spider-Man truly done with everything. He's not the underdog here. He's the guy saying, like, no, you guys, it's too much. I can't hang. This is just, no, not my thing. So this cover, I remember actually seeking out because I saw this on a poster at a comic store once, and I loved this cover since, and it took me quite a while to get, because if it's in this box, it means I got it in the last 10 years, and I've been collecting for 26 years, so this is a very pretty, very special cover to me. And John Romita, just one of the masters. All right. Next up, we've got 114. This is beginning, so after Cops Out begins the gang war era of Spider-Man comics. This is when there was a fair amount of crime in New York, and basically that bled into the comic books themselves. This is a gang war type storyline with Hammerhead, with Spider-Man. Again, a very pretty splash of yellow. Note the 70s car in the background. Note the wardrobe, and you've got Doc Ock involved in the mix. So you've got a supervillain gang war. The stakes are very high. All right. And then, okay, so this is a wonderful era in Spider-Man where Doc Ock and Aunt May start to date. All right, here we go. This is Aunt May shooting at Spider-Man, protecting Dr. Otto Octavius. This begins a very interesting storyline where Spider-Man obviously knows Otto Octavius is Doc Ock, but Aunt May doesn't necessarily know, so Peter Parker has to deal with his beloved aunt dating one of his fiercest foes, one of his biggest enemies, and this was a really fun time to be reading Spider-Man, and this is a really clean copy. The light blue is hard to keep from getting foxed. It's a really tricky issue to keep in this kind of condition because the brightness of yellow with the paleness of the blue, I really love the quality of this one. All right. Next up, we've got 116. Now, this is one of those issues where I don't remember, I haven't read some of these in many, many years. I don't remember who the Smasher is in the context of Hammerhead and the gang war and the Doc Ock stuff that's going on. But this is one of those rare issues where, look, he's got eyes in his mask. It's like he doesn't have the eyeballs in. And I always remember that as a kid being like, what's going on there? All right. Next up. This one is a very politically charged issue. This is number 117. There is an election going on. There is a criminal that is basically named the Disruptor who is breaking up a political convoy. This was in the very politically charged 70s where so much was going on in the world that it definitely affected comics. So if there are people that you know that are upset that comic books have politics involved in them, then, I mean, Captain America, a government-funded super soldier to fight Nazis, and even people like Spider-Man, who frankly has always had that be a part of his story, even if it's not as prevalent as other comic books. All right. And then we've got 118, more of the Smasher, more of the Disruptor, and the sweet, sweet hyperbole of hella exclamation points of the 60s. Oh, yeah. All right. And now we have... Okay, this is part 1 of 2 of one of my favorite short runs, and that's Spidey versus the Hulk. So I've always loved the idea of Spider-Man being the ultimate underdog and the Hulk being just this fearsome brute that Spider-Man will take out. He will find a way. The Hulk gets, stronger the angrier it gets, but Spider-Man gets more resourceful, and he's a force of sheer willpower. So this is willpower with strength meeting willpower with smarts, and it was in the classic era of Spider-Man art. So it's really clean lines, it's really pretty, and then the next issue is just as glorious, and that is, of course, more Spider-Man v. Hulk glory. So now we are approaching some iconic territory. We're entering into the 120s of Amazing Spider-Man, and this is that rare territory where I am missing comic books. This is issue 120, and I am missing 121, 122, and 129. Now, those issues are very important because that is the death of Gwen Stacy. Issue 121 is this stunning cover with the Green Goblin and Gwen Stacy and so very much going on. And then 122 is one of the prettiest covers in the history of comic books. And it is, of course, the yellow cover, all of the squares, and one of the characters dies in this issue. And that is, of course, the great Gwen Stacy. Now, in my humble opinion, and many comic historians' humble opinion, the death of Gwen Stacy, Amazing Spider-Man issue 122, marks the end of the Silver Age. That is when the Silver Age ended. That was it. So that comic didn't just change Spider-Man. It didn't just change that the Marvel run forever. It changed comic books. It changed DC Comics. It changed how we read comics. So 121 and 122 are 2 of the 34 issues I have left to collect. And then 129, another vibrant yellow issue, is the first Punisher. So those are ones I'm seeking out. I want them in good condition. That's why I don't have them yet. I've had opportunities to get them in decent condition. But I spoke too soon. I do have 122. I forgot I got this. I need 121. Look at this beauty. This is that zesty Green Goblin cover I love so very much. I misspoke. Oh, I love this cover. Okay. I still need 34 issues because I looked at my list this morning, but I had the numbers wrong. I do have 122. All right, then we are over to Wolfman Glory. We've got the very first appearance ever of Man-Wolf. I clearly bought this at a comic store that knew that. It is marked as such. This is J. Jonah Jameson's son, the astronaut, who for many, many years, we're at issue 121, was just the astronaut. He wasn't Man-Wolf yet. So it's a really cool storyline where basically John is the beloved hero of America. He's an astronaut. He's the son of the editor of one of the biggest newspapers in New York. And basically, when he turns, it breaks Jonah because he's always called Spider-Man a menace. He's always seen his son as a hero. He's always seen his son as the opposite of the monsters he sees these mass vigilantes as. So the commentary here of basically having his son becomes the menace that he's always hated. And I've always liked the dichotomy of what Jonah did to cope with that versus what he did to cope with all the menaces running around his city. So this starts a really cool little arc with Man-Wolf kicking off there. All right. And then we have issue 125, and this is more Man-Wolf glory, but he has just lost Gwen Stacy, and now we start to see some of the PTSD, the fallout, the mental ramifications, because we've had people lose people in comic books. We've had huge deaths in comic books, but Gwen Stacy was the love of his life. That's Romeo staying alive after losing Juliet. That's Superman losing Lois Lane, not Lois Lane losing Superman. So this was really interesting because even on the cover, like, you don't even make it inside the issue, and he's got Spider-Man screaming, "No, I won't let you, not like Gwen, not like Gwen!" Multiple ends for impact. And I thought this was really interesting that the Man-Wolf, who's a character we just introduced the issue prior, this is 125, Man-Wolf was just introduced in 124, and they're using him so interestingly because we've got a brand new character that is causing such emotional turmoil because he just lost the biggest thing in his life, and I've always loved that Spider-Man was one of us. I've always loved that Spider-Man was appealing to the people that actually experience pain, the people that are going through the world. He's not impervious to anything. He's just wearing a mask to protect us. All right. Protect him and his loved ones, I mean. This, I think, is one of the prettiest Vulture covers of all time. This beauty right here is when Adrian Toomes kind of shifts from being a more hokey villain, in my opinion, to a serious threat to Spider-Man. He's arrested the Vulture many times at this point, so this becomes a vendetta. This becomes something much more serious to him, and Adrian Toomes' man continues on right here. All right. Now we've got... Oh, I love this character. All right. He's silly. He was kind of in the Spider-Man Far From Home. The closest I think we'll ever get, we had Hydro Man, we had an Earth-based, and we had a nod to Molten Man. So we have Molten Man right here, putting in the work, taking out Spider-Man. Now, Roxxon Corporation is going to be a really interesting thing because Roxxon's been lightly introduced. We've got shades of Roxxon in the MCU, and Roxxon is a mega corporation a la Oscorp, a la a lot of these other characters, and this man right here ties directly into all that. Now, rumor has it that Roxxon is featured heavily in Thor Love and Thunder because we don't know who Christian Bale's playing. I'd be very curious if they introduce corporate espionage because it's so wacky, because how insane the Thor movies are to bring in, like, corporations would be very fascinating. But if we get Roxxon, I think down the line we might get but I really like the nod in Spider-Man Far From Home of a Molten Man-esque character. Alright, I want to make sure I didn't put these back in the wrong order. Alright, I did not. Alright, so we skip ahead a little because I've got a fairly sizable run back on the East Coast. So now we are leaving the 130s and jumping to, this took so long for me to find a decent condition. This is the return of the Green Goblin. So the Green Goblin goes away for quite some time. I mean, he takes out Gwen in the 120s. This is 177. This starts another whole era of gang war, another whole era of Spider-Man. And the Green Goblin has always been what they've kind of turned Doc Ock into for me. I feel like the movies overused the goblins without actually building them up. So for me, the Osborns are a yin to Spider-Man's yang. Harry Osborn is not as smart as Peter, but he's got the money. Peter doesn't have the money, but he's got the intelligence. So Peter always kind of felt like the son that Norman didn't get, and Harry knew it, Peter knew it, Norman knew it. And then the betrayal was twofold because Green Goblin hated Spider-Man at the core of his being, so to see that he was his friend's son / his surrogate son was life-changing. And then for Spider-Man to have someone he cared about so much, like as a father figure-ish, and has the father of his best friend, that was affecting him on so many different levels. But we've never gotten we did the closest we did was Spider-Man 1 with the Willem Dafoe's take, but we didn't meet Norman Osborn at all really in the Amazing Spider-Man movies. We met Harry kind of, but what I would do is it'd be a 5-movie saga, and you'd meet Norman Osborn in episode 1 of the saga, and Harry Osborn and Spider-Man to be friends at the end of the first one. They wouldn't know each other that well. You'd have the idea of basically Norman as this above all Elon Musk type, this larger than life scientist, and more friendly though. I don't know Elon, but more approachable. And then basically as it develops, he's got this hero worship. Like, Peter loves Norman Osborn. He's a scientist, all these things. And then as you see he's crazy, it starts to affect the character in the second movie. And then Harry Osborn is dating Mary Jane, and Peter's with Gwen, and they go to college, and they're like the 4 kids that are always at the coffee shops. You got your friends flavor. You've got that whole element that I've never really gotten in these Spider-Man movies. And then you evolve into the betrayal in the 3rd film of Norman Osborn, and then in the 4th film, Harry Osborn, and then it evolves. The Goblin Saga is a long-form run. It's almost better to be on TV. It could be Thronesian, but something more like Breaking Bad, like where the characters need to evolve to the point where when they snap, like, there's much more of a Walter White element to Norman Osborn than they've really had the time to give him, and that's how you get to Thunderbolts. That's how you get that is beloved by the public, that is evil. I'd cast someone that's beloved like Leonardo DiCaprio or Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks has been my Norman Osborn for a long time. I'd cast someone like that. Then hell, you could cast Colin Hanks as Harry Osborn. But I think that the friendship between Harry and Spider jump. I need the betrayal. It needs to happen later on. I think we need to know Norman long before we know he's the Green Goblin. The pop culture identity of Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin is well known. You couldn't do the twist like you did in the comics. In the comics, it was actually a mystery. That way, when the reveal happened, it was actually a big deal. So I would love to see that attempt. They did a really good job in Spider-Man Homecoming by having the twist of the Green Goblin happen with the Vulture. Effectively, the Vulture twist was what they did. Instead of it being Harry's dad, it was the love interest's dad. And I loved that twist. That was brilliant. They even had the Vulture's wings as a pseudo-glider in that one scene. They had the scene in the car read like a lot of the Harry, like, overpowering Peter just verbally scenes. So we've had the closest... In my opinion, the closest Green Goblin storyline we've had is a Vulture storyline, which is really interesting. But when we inevitably have a Spider-Man reboot that isn't Andrew Garfield, when we start a Spider-Man removed from this continuity, I'd love to see the Green Goblin saga handled that way, because he's so involved. He's such a legacy character, and I don't think we've really had him yet. As much as I loved James Franco, as much as I love Willem Dafoe, it was too early for that level of... there was no way... 5 movies. The fact that we got 1 good Spider-Man movie, much less 2 incredible Sam Raimi movies, was a miracle. This wasn't when they were making movies like that. Alright, on to more Goblin goodness. This is more twists and turns. Issue 108. We've got a Goblin being unmasked. We've got another Goblin flying in. One of them's Norman. One of them's clearly not, because he is confused. Once again, I'd love to see Jack-O-Lantern and Demogoblin and something like Thunderbolts. I'd love to get us there. This one is... Now, this is, I think, the 4th appearance. It's an early appearance of the Punisher, but Punisher at this point was quantity. Punisher first debuted in issue 129, so by the time he came back in 202, he also came back in this really fun Nightcrawler. There's 2 issues with Punisher and Nightcrawler, and it's basically the Punisher dealing with Spider-Man trying to not let him kill, Nightcrawler dealing with all he feels towards people hurt, and Spider-Man trying to like wrangle all of that. But the dichotomy between Punisher and Spider-Man, they really realized the gold they had. And you'll also notice that comic books have changed size at this point. Now we're into the modern age size of comics, and I still use Silver Age bags and boards. I personally, you see there's room on the top and the side. I like my comics to have some room. I think it's easier to bag them board them this way. I'm less worried about them. Also, I like comics to all be like flush, uniform. When I have the space, I like to do bookcases for my comic books. So I like seeing all of the Silver Age bags and boards all the way down. That is personally how I sort my comics. No matter when comics are from, I only buy, personally, Silver Age bags and boards. That's just my thing. Alright, we're going to be jumping ahead. Yeah, okay. Top 50 cover of all time. We've got one of the best single issues of Spider-Man ever. If you don't care about continuity, if you don't care about building up the legacy, if you just want to read a really bitchin' Hobgoblin issue, one of my favorites. Issue 238. This is peak Hobgoblin. This is Ned Leeds. This is discovering the mystery. This is building up to another character that's going to last decades in Spider-Man lore. Now, I personally am not big. He kind of became a joke. I like what Donny Cates has done to repair some of that with the Venom stuff. I'm still iffy on the Carnage Goblin thing, but it's a great character design. It's a lot of fun. I like the Red Goblin storyline that Dan Slott ended with, but he'd already dug a hole that I didn't like with the Goblin at that point. I like plenty of Dan Slott's writing, just personally not that stuff. To me, this is when the Goblins worked. So we're talking a while ago. This is in the 80s, but this to me is peak Goblin. This to me is peak psychological warfare with characters. Right now in the Spider-Man comics, there's a character that's like, I forget, I don't even remember his name. He's so neutral. But he's like in a straitjacket and he like manipulates stuff and he's got like tendrils and they're playing this big mystery a la the Goblin, and I'm assuming he's Harry Osborn or someone tying into the legacy of Spider-Man, but this was months of conversation. If the internet was around when this was out, this would have been trending on Twitter every week. Every time we got a little hint at who the Hobgoblin was after the big intrigue of the Green Goblin. This was peak Spidey, man. Issue 238 is real special. So if you want to read a single issue of Spider-Man to see if Hobgoblin or the Goblin stuff is your guy, check out 238. It is a damn good time. That's why I put it in the cover of this episode. 238 is one of my favorite covers, and I made it the cover of Coyllection episode 2 because it is beloved. All right, now we jump ahead a lot, so I'm going to take a second to answer questions. That includes 238 is the most recent of the comics I needed. I didn't have 238 for a long time because, like I said, it's one of my favorites, so I waited to get it in this beautiful condition. Corner, it is magnificent, so I waited to get this issue. So 238 is the most recent of the comics I bought in the last 10 years. We got skip to 651, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. I'm going to check the Streamlabs, make sure I didn't miss anything, because I want to make sure I get that while we do this show. We are currently almost half an hour into talking about comics as we jump ahead to the present stuff, which is absolutely perfect. This is going to take a second to load. Okay, good to go there. Gonna check on the live chat. All right. Okay, where's my live chat at? For anyone that is watching this later on, I apologize for jumping in the live chat. I gotta make sure people are good. So choppy, I'm so sorry. Yeah, my internet, even though overpriced and crazy, is not great. So that's why I'm holding up the comics a little longer and trying to get everything I can for you. I do apologize for my internet. Not only is my phone and computer overheating, but it's also being garbage. So deep apologies, and as I can improve that, I will. Yeah, I'm hoping to move in the next 6 months, and wherever I move, I'm gonna make a priority. So I'm probably gonna bring a stream tester to the apartment and see what their Wi-Fi and bandwidth stuff's like, because this is my job, and it's not working out so well. So I'm glad the audio's working good. I'm going to try to move as soon as I possibly fucking can. Believe you me. I don't have AC, and it's 90-some degrees. I'm dying. But also the internet not working is madness. So all apologies, but otherwise, I'm glad you guys are digging it. Let's see. Jesus says, Max, I love the life story. Really love what Chip Zdarsky was able to do with Spidey through the years. Yeah, that is a 5-issue run. Life story is 5 issues, and it's some of the best Spidey, period. Chip Zdarsky gets the heart of Spider-Man. He gets the humor of key essential elements, teaming up with Mark Bagley, one of the most iconic Spider-Man artists of all time. The guy that's drawn Spider-Man probably the most because he drew Amazing for years, and then the Ultimate Spider-Man Legacy run. He's the longest duo with Bendis to ever draw or work on a book. They hold the longest run after Lee and Kirby. So he's drawn probably the most Spider-Man ever, and that life story run is great. He's now working on Venom with Donny Cates, so lots of very good stuff going on over there. Sahil, thank you. I agree. At least the audio is good. I'm trying. I'm much obliged. All right. Moving on. Okay, so we're going to giant jump. We left 238, which is in the 80s. We are jumping ahead to very, very, very modern day. So basically what happened is all of my books were on the East Coast because I lived there. So when I moved out here, I brought a clean new number where basically I wanted to know that my pre-blank number was safe and sound. So the first one that came out with me was 651. So this way I know that pre-650, that's back home, ends at 650. I know for a fact because 651's right here. So I recommend doing the same. Now I feel the not like, where did I leave off? Did I miss anything in the middle? What's going on? So we jump way ahead to Dan Slott, big time, with that coming back into a real prevalent run of Spider-Man with 651. All right, now big time lasts for quite a while, so I think we're going to be living there for a bit. I love the cover work. A few people commented on the last video that Silver Age covers are so much better than modern covers. I think they're great, and I love the poster quality. I love the feel of the classic 60s and 70s covers, but I think we'll look back at the modern covers with such reverence, just like anything 20 years in the future. Like, it's always just a matter of getting to the point of appreciation. So I do believe we're all in a good way with these covers because they are so stunning. They're just different. Like, there's a much more cinematic tone to this. Like, we've got Captain Marvel in the background. We've got Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and Jessica Jones. And Jessica Jones is in her superhero outfit on this cover. Like, this is a very cinematic cover. I think this was when the first Mockingbird, I think this is when we were introducing more superheroic love interests to Spider-Man, which lasted quite a while. Once Mary Jane and Spider-Man broke up, they really tried to play the Spider-Man dating card. Got an arc that did not last long. See there, it says introducing the brand new Venom. That did not work out. They introduced this guy, Lee, I think it was, who basically was like a mercenary that got given the Venom suit. For a while, Scorpion had the Venom suit. There was actually a pretty cool storyline where they were auctioning off the Venom symbiote to the highest bidder to be like the ultimate villain, and the art was great because I think it was John Romita Jr. And I really, I dug that little arc, but where it went after that wasn't really for me. And they tried to introduce a new Venom, and they basically haven't talked about him much since. I think he's had 2 appearances being referenced, and then I think he got killed in Absolute Carnage. But this is the first appearance of that other new Venom right there. Alright, more Dan Slott goodness. Here is this beastly Venom. This was very early on for this new suit we got going on right here. This is going to, in 5 years, turn into the Donny Cates stuff. Took us some time to get there, but it does eventually land with some glory. I saw something pop up on my screen. I want to make sure I get to the super chat or the Streamlab that I missed just now. I'm going to hope that it loads, and we will see what happened. Let me see. Overheating and loading. I am also overheating. All apologies for any sweatiness. It is both metaphorical and literal in this case. Alright. Oh, okay. I love this cover so freaking much. Okay, this is a perfect example of why it's not... You can't just say that those covers were better than these covers. A lot of that's nostalgia. A lot of that is of a bygone era concepts. A lot of that is believing that things were better before your time. This, to me, is one of those covers that proves otherwise. This is one of the most crisp, clean, just rad covers, and it's a modern one, and this run wasn't even something that I remember that fondly, but I remember this cover. Look at this beauty. at that. It is just so striking. There's so much power and emotion and just impact from this cover. The spider webs as the shadow, the feeling like broken glass, the mask in his hands, the inverted color, so it's just slightly off from being Spider-Man, and just the emotion, the mourning, the sadness, and then all of that on this pristine white cover. It also makes this wicked hard to keep in good condition. I read this once, bagged and boarded it, no fingerprints, no smudges, nothing's ever going to touch this pretty white cover. But to me, this is an example of, hey, modern covers can be really cool too. They're just doing it really differently. All right, we've got, open the super chat. Smack Talk, you witty, I respect you. Hey Coy, the stream is more choppy than a French kitchen, but I absolutely love your enthusiasm for these comics and their covers. Who do you say is the most underrated, overlooked comic book character in your opinion? Holy shit, what a question. One, I appreciate your patience with, at least my audio is good. If my audio is bad and the video is bad, so I appreciate that. Oh God. Does Moon Knight count? Because I feel like only comic fans know Moon Knight, and he's like Batman for comic fans. Like, Batman is obviously for comic fans too, but Batman's so known that I feel like Moon Knight's the unknown Batman. He wears white out of spite. Like, he sassily wears white because he wants villains to see him coming at them. Like, he's very like, all right, whatever, see me bleed, I'm gonna come for you. And there's just something so cocky and confident about that. So, as far as what character I think should be mainstream, Moon Knight. I'd say comic fans see him as A-list and B-list. I think the average person sees him as D-list because they don't even know him. They might have been like, oh, I've heard of this Moon Knight guy. So I think Moon Knight, if you're talking from a mainstream broad spectrum. But I would say if you're talking even within the realm of comics, if you're talking about characters that are completely unknown, that really need their time to shine, Animal Man. Animal Man should not be a good character. He's dumb. His origin is so silly. His powers are even sillier. He makes Aquaman look like the most inventive character. He literally reaches out and absorbs whatever animals are near him power. But through the power of good writing, through the brilliance of Grant Morrison, Animal Man, in a mere 26 issues, became one of my favorite characters of all time, and no one talks about Animal Man. Nobody thinks about Animal Man. No one acknowledges Animal Man. And there's 26 issues that I would argue are as good as Watchmen. As good as the best graphic novel of all time. We're talking an A-plus run. 26 issues of Animal Man that'll change your life. And his powers aren't great. And his origin is silly. And that's used to his advantage. The Animal Man comic uses all of the deficit that is the character to a strength. And that's why I think he's one of the most underrated characters of all time, because, frankly, everyone sees him as this nothing thing because they hear his powers and go, no, no. And he's overlooked. He's, frankly, nobody talks about Animal Man. And then I'd say third is Miracle Man, who's starting to get more attention. I talk about Mr. Miracle all the time. That's totally different. That's Scott Free. That is a DC character from the wacky... He's like part of something, so he's at least seen as a new god. He's part of a wacky world, whereas Miracle Man is like before a lot of people's time. He's not even referenced anymore, and he's got a really interesting power set. He's got a lot of the Superman. He's the Superman I like. Like, I'm not picking the character of Superman because he's really hard to write. When you get him right, he's perfect. I love Superman when you get him right, but I think that's like 10% of the time. Miracle Man is all of the things I like about Superman, but he's much more condensed. There's less arcs. There's less runs that aren't great. He's more consistent. So, in order, Moon Knight needs to be elevated to Batman status. Animal Man needs to be elevated to, oh my god, this is literature status. And Miracle Man needs to be talked about more. Those are the three, I think, most overlooked characters in comic books. And then, on the same level of Moon Knight, I'd say She-Hulk. Like, nobody gives She-Hulk enough respect. She broke the fourth wall before Deadpool did. She is a brilliant lawyer, and she's also a brilliant fighter. She's a really fun character. She's really funny. I think a lot of the humor the Hulk has came from the She-Hulk being funny. Hulk was always funny, but, like, the style of humor, I just answered a lot. So that's, like, 4. I apologize if that was too long, everyone else watching, but I'd say She-Hulk is also slept on. She's less overlooked because I feel like at least people know who She-Hulk is as opposed to the other 3 characters. But I think once the Disney Plus stuff comes out and people start discovering She-Hulk, if they handle the show right, She-Hulk's going to be huge, and she's super overlooked right now. But everyone in this watching this, read Animal Man. Okay. Watching from Portugal. Hell yeah! Sahil, Arm Fall Off Boy is a real character. He's up there for me with Matter Eater Lad. Those are two of my favorite characters of all time. Arm Fall Off Boy that's all of it. That's the whole power. And Matter Eater Lad just consumes anything. These are two of my favorite dumb characters. They're both amazing. I actually posted about both of those characters like 8 years ago last month because they popped up in my Facebook memories. So yeah, you didn't, that's not a fever dream. It's someone else's fever dream, but they got paid to put it on paper, which is a miracle. Both of those are real, and they are some sweet, sweet magic. Okay. Coy doesn't get any elbow sweat in his collection. So he'll have actually got this very craftily. See, my elbow is safely on Bill Murray, and I'm only using my fingertips. So I've actually, over the years, developed this down to a science of how, that's why the camera's framed so cleverly, because this is actually some science. Okay. Back to the comics. We've got another bitchin' cover and another, this is the beginning of, this is after Spider-Verse, but you can clearly tell they were enjoying all the money that came from multiple costumes. This is when you can start to do all the DLCs and video games, all the action figures. A dope cover with a dope alternate suit. This is one of those suits that really only pops up for one issue, and it's very much like a Deus Ex Machina. It is only useful in that issue's case, and you probably won't ever see it again until the DLC. Okay, another use of beautiful, beautiful blank space. I love negative space on covers. I love negative space in splash pages. I think Fiona Staples of Saga does them really well, but so does Martin. I forget the first name of this artist. Their last name is Martin, because I remember seeing it on tons and tons of covers. Look at the use of negative space. Now, a lot of people think negative space is wasted space. I disagree with every single one of those people. This, to me, says everything I need to know about his and Human Torch's relationship, his relationship with the Fantastic Four. Amazing Spider-Man #1 is him dealing with the Baxter Building. The Fantastic Four and Spider-Man are as OG as it gets. As long as there's been Spider-Man, there's been a relationship between Spider-Man and Fantastic Four. So this, to me, rekindles all of that. It shows his love for New York. It shows that crisp, clean line work. It shows the personality of Spider-Man himself. I love this cover, and I love this style of cover so, so much. All right. Next up, this suit would actually go on to places. This is an awesome suit. This, I do believe, is in the Spider-Man video game. This is very Future Foundation inspired. This is a very pretty suit, and arguably much more spider-like. To me, this reads as much more like the insect, or the arachnid that spiders are, and I like that as they evolved his suit, they let him have way more of this. Now we're into the 650s, leading up to 700. Dan Slott would leave Spider-Man at 700, so I think it's really funny, like, I felt like he'd been writing Spider-Man for a long time. He's like, I've got these ideas for suits, and then he just did a bunch of them at once. So I think it's really funny. We've seen 3 suits in the last like 4 issues. All right, so here I was talking about Spider-Man and the Future Foundation. This is him in that suit with the Future Foundation clad Fantastic Four, putting in the work. A lot of energy in this cover, very much a movie poster, like Back to the Future almost inspired. This very much has that cinema flavor to it. And I really like that we're getting more attention on the Fantastic Four. I think they're very modern-wise slept on. They're Marvel's first family, and no one really like gives them that credo. All right, 660. We are now evolving into Spider Island, which was a very big arc that crossed over lots and lots of Spidey time. Basically, in Spider Island, everyone in New York got Spider-Man powers, and basically, it's the opposite of Marvel's. Marvel's is this great Alex Ross painted run Kurt Busiek wrote, and it was about how basically an everyman would react to these Marvels, these large-than-life characters. Spider Island was the opposite. If everyone has spider powers, what's Spider-Man? Like, if everyone can do what Spider-Man can, including Mary Jane, how is he special? And Mary Jane was awesome with the powers, and since she knew Peter, she knew how to wield them better, and it turned into this really cool storyline. I like Spider Island a lot. All right, Spider-Man the Teacher. One of my favorite Spider-Man runs of all time is J. Michael Straczynski's. It was in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 2, number 30. So we're talking 2000. Because, yeah, in the year 2000, J. Michael Straczynski was writing Spider-Man, and he was a college professor. He was older. He was more mature. He was actually what I wanted them to make the Spider-Man reboot. I was hoping they'd do Straczynski. His run fell off for me as it went along, but the first 2 arcs are brilliant. And I wanted Jake Gyllenhaal to play that Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2, the Sam Raimi one, Tobey Maguire hurt his back on Seabiscuit, and it was almost Jake Gyllenhaal that took the spot. So I was hoping we let Jake and Spider-Man, the character, age a bit. When they reboot it from the Sam Raimi, they'd go with the Straczynski run, the early Straczynski run, and have Jake Gyllenhaal be a college professor Spider-Man, had him teach at, Empire State University, have him already married to Mary Jane, have that turn into the Venom saga, because you don't want a kid fighting Venom. It's going to be really tricky with Tom Holland and Tom Hardy. Like, they're... Part of the rage of Venom is the Eddie Brock feeling slighted by Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Like, it's a feud between Eddie Brock and Venom that causes the hatred of Spider-Man. So it being a kid and the 20-year difference in age is really tricky. So I would have loved if they'd had a Jake Gyllenhaal age Spider-Man, be the same age as Venom, introduce Eddie Brock as a creeper, and basically, I mean, hell, Tom Hardy then would have been great. And basically have him, like, hitting on Mary Jane, that really gross bro at the gym. Like, the Todd McFarlane Eddie Brock is such a repulsive character. It would have been really cool to see that character. Like, he stalked Mary Jane. All of the weird humor of Venom is still there, but it's on, like, there's an edge to it that's really... And that's why him being an anti-hero is tricky. So I would have loved to see a more mature Spider-Man handle that. But I've always liked the idea of Spider-Man as a professor, because it adds an element of him growing out from being a student, which is how we met him, into someone that still values education, someone that's wicked smart. The guy invented web fluid. Like, it's a very different thing. All right. We are moving on to the 660s, 662. We are still edging towards Spider Island. Now, this is when they were doing 2 issues a month, so you could have this banner up top saying, "We're getting there. We're going to do Spider Island, we promise." And they did for a very long time. I remember thinking Spider Island couldn't possibly live up to the hype. Luckily, it did live up to the hype. All right. More characters that didn't go the places I thought they would. This is Terry Dodson art. Terry and Rachel Dodson are some of my favorite artists in comics. They've worked with Kevin Smith. They've worked on long runs. They did Marvel Knights Spider-Man with Kevin Smith writing, and their art on Spidey is just stunning. I actually can't remember this character, and that does not happen all that very often, but Anti-Venom behind is a very, very visually cool character, and came into play with Absolute Carnage. Basically, the touch from Anti-Venom fucks the symbiote right up, and it's basically a cure-all character. And if I remember correctly, Flash Thompson was wearing it when Flash was killed. So Flash was, Agent Venom for a while, and then Anti-Venom, and the Flash Venom stuff is crazy. The Venom character is so hard to keep track of continuity-wise. There's a lot going on. But here we've got more Anti-Venom leading up to Spider Island. You'll also notice, look at that date. We're talking 2011. We are gearing up for Winter Soldier. That is a Captain American Winter Soldier ad on the corner of this Spider-Man. So, to put it in perspective, we're at 660, and this comic is 10 years old next year. This is a 9-year-old book, and it feels like this was 2 years ago. That's crazy. Holy shit. I didn't realize. Wow. 660 was 9 years ago. Insane. Insane. Okay. That actually makes sense, because this box is 10 years of, yeah. I love marquees at movie theaters. This cover speaks to my heart. I love the use of sticky feet. I love Spider-Man putting up a marquee of Spider-Man using all of his limbs, all of his spider abilities. This is a very fun, very playful cover, and it suits the sensibility. I like humorous covers. All right. Okay, it begins. This is issue 666. That playful cover was very much a probably filler issue. Usually you want to hit like these sweet, sweet numbers. Obviously, if you're 665, you know you're right away from the big 666. So, fun, playful cover, probably a fun filler or setup issue. As we leave to Spider Island, Spider Island kicks off with issue 666, and that is this beautiful Statue of Liberty cover. Look at that beauty. Look at Spider-Man and the Statue of Liberty. This tells you everything about what this is going to be about. This is all of New York being involved with this Spider Island, the island of Manhattan. All of New York is affected by Spider-Man. Spider-Man is the Statue of Liberty here. Spider-Man is overseeing all of this craziness. This is how you kick off Spider Island. You wait till issue 666, and you make Spider Island the frickin' Statue of Liberty. Great cover. And then, okay, this is really personal and rad for me. So we might... No, we're at 45 minutes. We got another 15. Okay. I am a diehard loyalist. That's part of my collecting. That's part of my comic stores. Like, I really only shop at the same stores because I love my stores. I love the camaraderie of comic books. In my Patreon, I said my Discord, I wanted to feel like walking into a comic store. I love the feeling of knowing where everybody knows your name. I love that world. So Larry's Comics is a comic store in Lowell, Massachusetts. Larry's Comics is where my hobby became an obsession. I was brief Coy tangent. This is going to take a couple minutes. I was born in Virginia, lived in New York for 3 years in upstate New York, and then very, very, very young at age 8, moved to Boston. Now, I lived in Boston from 8 till 21. I shopped at one comic book store from 8 to 21. I would occasionally pop into other stores if Larry didn't have something with Larry's permission, because I was really like loyal to be like, Larry, is it alright if I get it? He's like, yeah, go buy your comics. But I was a subscriber to Larry's Comics, and then as I got older, I occasionally worked with Larry. I would do cons with him at the Radisson in Chelmsford. I would work like unloading boxes, selling comics. I from the age I could legally work and help, I was. Once Larry's got flooded, and it was the most heartbreaking thing to see toys and comic books and everything just eviscerated by water, and Larry's was underground then. So Larry had started across the street, moved to a new place upstairs, and then the upstairs became a skate shop, and the downstairs became a comic shop. There was a while that it was a combo skate shop and comic shop. I got my first longboard actually at Larry's Comics, so I longboarded for a little bit. So I was part of that world. So the comic store meant the world to me. So even when I lived in LA, for the first 6 years of me living in LA, I got my comics shipped from Boston to here. So I would wait until I had about 6 months worth of comics, and then I would accumulate them all and then have them shipped out here. So I wasn't reading comics weekly, I wasn't reading comics monthly, I was reading comics like twice a year. And so for like 4 weeks, I would just pour through, and I was reading every X-Men, every Spider-Man. Like, it was a lot of runs, and I'd get them shipped out here. So that was Larry. Larry is still, he's like my uncle, Larry's family. And I still get comics there whenever I go home. Whenever I'm in Boston, I make sure to go to Larry's Comics. So if you're on the East Coast, if you're anywhere within hours of Boston, Larry is now in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. If you call him, he ships. He's curbside. He will deliver your comics. Even in quarantine, Larry is the man. So, all the way to get to this, Larry was one of the creators that got a custom cover for Spider Island #1. This is issue 666, and that is Larry and all of the people that were there for the photo shoot for Larry's Comics issue 666. I was so upset I couldn't make it home. I tried to figure out a way to afford flying home to be in this photo, and the idea of photoshopping me in just felt cheesy. But this is where I'm from. This store and this city. This is a comic. This is a variant that means the world to me. So, Larry, so much love. Comic book stores, I love you. I respect you. I'm loyal to you. This issue means the world to me. This is a Larry's Comics Amazing Spider-Man Spider Island. Mwah! Magic! Alright, after that rant, I feel like I should check the live chat here. Alright. Alright. Let's see. Future Foundation suit is the best Spider-Man in the game. I love the detail in the suits in that game. Absolutely. Totally agree. Max, if I could, recommend some books. The recent run, the new Amazing Spider-Man run by Nick Spencer, Savage Avengers by Jim Duggan, Jerry Duggan, by the way, and James Tynion, the fourth run on Batman, also Tom King's run on Batman. Jesus, we have very similar taste. Excellent taste, good sir, if I will selfishly agree. Yes, I agree with all those runs. They are fantastic. Let's see. Thanks for the Rex. Definitely gonna check those out. Love Vision and Mr. Miracle, so I'm interested in see what Tom King did with Batman. Max, check out the first few volumes of Tom King's Batman, see if they're your cup of tea. I liked the first ones a little bit more. I see where he went with his Batman, but the first ones are so accessible. I think the first 5 volumes of Tom King's Batman are amongst the best Batman ever printed. It's very aggressive, and a lot of people don't like how he writes Batman. I got in a lot of shit for loving Tom King's Batman. When I was doing Collider Heroes, people would attack me all the time for loving Tom King's Batman. I think it's some of the best ever written. I think it's consistent. I think it's insightful. I think it's brutal. I think it's Batman. I love the characters he introduced. I loved how he wrote Joker. I loved how he wrote Riddler. His Bane, I think, is amongst the best Bane. He respected Bane as a character. Tom King's Batman. Check out I Am Bane, I Am Gotham, War of Jokes and Riddles. There's a lot of great Batman stuff from Tom King, those first 5 volumes especially. And everything he just recommended. Tom King's just brilliant, man. And Jonathan says, my hobby store is like that. I'll pay more just to support them. Hell yeah. Literally getting comics shipped from the East Coast when I live in LA, and I was near all those comic stores. Once I found House of Secrets, I'd shop there for back issues. And I became like, they became my store, but I'll still shop at Larry's. So now I have House of Secrets, Larry's, and Golden Apple. Golden Apple's where I get a lot of my trades, a lot of my hardcovers, a lot of my collectibles. House of Secrets is where I get a lot of my weekly pulls. And then Larry, whenever he's got something I need, I make sure to help Larry out whenever I can and plug the hell out of him. I also wear a lot of Larry's shirts for stuff because I want people to know the name. So yeah, and Larry's Comics, House of Secrets, Golden Apple Rant. Check those guys out. They're amazing. All right, more Spider Island glory. We are now into Spider Island. Everyone has been infected. Everyone is becoming a spider-powered character, and that includes characters that have their own other powers. It gets crazy. More Spider Island. It evolves. Now this is Umberto Ramos, who is so good with Spider-Man. His blocky style really allows for a kinetic energy that really moves Spider-Man around. He was drawing Spider-Man in the late 400s, if memory serves. So he's been with Spidey for decades, and like 2 decades. And I've always really liked his style, but I think he's grown even more into one of the most iconic Spider-Man artists of all time, and he's still drawing them. He actually reminds me a lot of the current guy who's drawing Amazing Spider-Man, who did Invincible. That thick line work and really energetic flow to his page reminds me a lot of Ramos, and vice versa. This cover is so much fun. So you've got villains, you've got heroes, you've got a backdrop of all sorts of Spider-Man legacy, and then you've got J. Jonah Jameson web slinging. If you told someone that read Silver Age comics, this was one of the covers, they'd think it was one of those misleading covers where he like had to borrow a web shooter or something, and he didn't actually have powers, or like this was a joke that Spider-Man did to Jonah for a newspaper cover. No. This is Jonah Jameson with spider powers, and I love the, background transparent heroes and villains plus Jonah. This is such a fun cover. Once again, a very fun run. All right, so I mentioned the great Mary Jane with spider powers. I have always had a crush on Mary Jane. She is an ex-party girl turned hyper-caring, brilliant businesswoman that's a supermodel. Like, it's a comic cliche, but goddamn, that's so many wonderful things. And they know. That is just fetching. Mary Jane with spider powers clinging to a wall. This mirrors one of my favorite covers of all time, Amazing Spider-Man number 70, where it's that bright yellow cover of Spider-Man up against the wall. This is the spider light on her, so she's probably talking to Peter. I love how this mirrors one of my favorite covers. I love that it's Mary Jane with spider powers. There's so much to like about the Spider Island stuff. All right, MJ, Peter Parker teaming up. She's got the Spider-Man shirt. He's got the Spider-Man pants and booties. They are kicking butt. I love when MJ gets to actually do work. Tom Taylor's current, or just ended, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, one of the best issues in there is Spider-Man's been fighting all sorts of madness during War of the Realms. He's completely exhausted. He can't fight anymore. He passes out. Like, doesn't fall asleep, passes out for 12 hours, and Mary Jane goes out, and she helps the city. She is a tough, smart, capable badass. So it's a Mary Jane-centric issue that starts off with her like tucking Spider-Man in and then going and helping. The Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man run from Tom Taylor, so consistent, so good, really modern, really fantastic. But back in Spider Island, I loved Mary Jane fighting alongside Spider-Man. It's really good stuff. All right, the end of Spider Island mirrors one of the most iconic Spider-Man covers. So that last one, 2 issues ago, mirrored Amazing Spider-Man 70. This one mirrors Amazing Spider-Man 50. This is Spider-Man No More. Got the spider suit and the garbage. You've got Spider-Man walking away, but this is Spider Island, so this is everything away. This is No More Powers. This is an epilogue. This is the end of Spider Island, and they mirror one of the best, most iconic, most visually stunning Spider-Man covers of all time. Also, this was 9 years ago. We have hashtags on covers, guys. That is so weird to see. Hashtag Spider Island. Get it trending. So weird. So weird. The future's weird. We live in the future and it's a weird time. All right. We're going to go to 675 and call it because I am sweating. We've got more Vulture goodness. We are evolving out of Spider Island. I was saying how the Vulture got more intellectual. He becomes a big bad, especially in the new Nick Spencer stuff. The Vulture is a very prevalent character, and I think that was kind of shaping into where we got with the Adrian Toomes in the Spider-Man movie. Like, this was 9 years ago. That movie's now, 4 years old? I'd say they were probably starting to make ideas of what that script was going to be probably 2 years after. So they probably looked at 2 years ago, which is this stuff, and looked at what characters were working. All right, last one of the day. Look at this beautiful cover. Look at the energy, the intensity, the negative space, the vertigo-inducing madness. Vulture fighting Spider-Man in the sky, a full-on melee. The strength of the Vulture is apparent here. He's an old man and he's whooping Spider-Man's butt. That is issue 675. That is a good place to stop for the day. So we did from 100 up through the new modern stuff with 675. We're going to keep cranking along. I think next week I'll do a third one of these. I, too, am excited for comic book stores to open. We're going to finish this box, which will probably take 1, maybe 2 more episodes. So 1, maybe 2 more weeks. And then we're going to shift over to A through, like, H of my Blu-rays. Because I have, like, 600 or 700 Blu-rays. They're not all here, but the ones I have here, not in storage. That'd be fun to go through. And I think diving into Blu-rays to mix it up from the comics would be fun. I think after Spider-Man, maybe we'll do some Deadpool. We'll go through the Jerry Duggan Deadpool stuff. We'll go through the more modern Deadpool stuff. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you want me to stick with comics? Do you want me to go to Blu-rays? Do you want me to... I think toys are going to come later. I've also got tons of 90s Spider-Man toys, so those are going to come later. As ever, Smack Talk / Sahil. I got hot, guys. Thank you for these Streamlabs, and thank you for being here. I always appreciate your support. I hope I answered your question to the best of my ability. Guys, this is fun. I like this Thursday tradition. Wednesday is traditionally New Comic Book Day. It's starting back up again. This Tuesday, we had new comics from DC. This upcoming Wednesday, we've got new comics from DC, including Joker, Harley, Criminal Sanity #4 from Cami Garcia, which is such a good run, and I'm very, very excited to dive into that. I see in the chat we say do a mix of both. I've got to kind of do one at a time because I'll need to move all my Blu-rays over to here and a comic box and all the stacks of stuff, so I'm probably going to stick to one medium at a time. So that's why I'm thinking one box, then transition to Blu-rays, then come back. Because I might even like set up a camera against my bookcase of movies and just kind of like go through them up in the air to give a new setting and all that jazz. We'll see. We'll see. But I appreciate y'all. I'm glad you enjoy the show. Please like, comment, all that stuff. It's a weird idea to go through a long box of comics, so I'm glad to see it's working for people. If you guys like the shirt, the mug, Coycast.com for all of your Coycast needs. I hope you guys are listening to the Coycast because soft announcement right now. It is all but confirmed. It is not yet on the book, so I don't want to say who it is, but I think we have our very first guest on Coycast this upcoming week. So if his schedule lines up with my schedule, we have an icon of all comics. We have a legend of comic books that asked to come on the show. So if our schedules work out, one of my favorite creators in the history of comics that I've interviewed before, that I interviewed a year ago, almost to the day, over on Collider Heroes. That is the biggest hint I will give, because that narrows it down to 3 iconic creators I love, is potentially doing Coycast. If the schedule works out, it's good. We've already talked, we already want to, it could be really rad. So if you're not listening to Coycast, check that out. I very much appreciate you guys. I'm going to stick my head in the freezer and try to cool the hell off. I will see you guys next week for part 3 of the Amazing Spider-Man run. We will be catching up to modern day. We will be finishing Dan Slott's run. He has an amazing issue 700 and an incredible issue 701, and then we'll be jumping into the more modern stuff. We are getting there. We are catching up to modern day. You guys are absolutely incredible. I'm going to check the live chat one last time just to make sure I'm not ignoring anybody. Guys, thank you. I appreciate you. So much love. Thank you for being here, and thank you, as ever, for comic books, for existing. Stay cool. Find an air conditioner. It's important. All right. Love you guys.